Earlier this year, de-influencing videos were extremely popular. Here on YouTube, of course, but most especially on Instagram and TikTok. Over the past few weeks, I've actually noticed an increase in these videos again, but this time more directed at holiday spending and, sale spending. Although I missed these videos the first time around, I'm going to use this opportunity to talk about de-influencing and my general take. Before we get into it, I want to thank y'all for your support on my last video. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to link it in the cards because in that video, I announced that I now have a website. You can go check it out in the description below, shanarapari.com. And one of the things I want to direct you to, if you missed that video, you haven't heard me talk about it, I have an email list. Besides like a really awesome developing blog, I have an email list where you can sign up to get weekly emails from me on topics of conscious consumerism. But I think relevant to this video and this time of year is a Black Friday email series. If you're interested in that, it will pop up when you enter the site. And that series is going to start on November 20th and it's going to run the entire week of Black Friday into Cyber Monday. And it's really going to be about helping you shop mindfully this season, whether that means abstaining from shopping from Black Friday or shopping in a way that matches your budget, kind of whatever mindful shopping means for you right now. The series is just really meant to encourage you and kind of get that conscious consumerism and little nuggets every day when you might need it most. So with that, we're going to get on with the video. The TLDR, in my opinion, is that it's largely tokenistic. And in many cases, people are still advocating you buy something, which is not de-influencing. So when I first heard about these videos, when I first saw them, I was initially a fan. When this trend first came about, when I first heard about it before I saw any video, I thought it was great. I think it's really wonderful for just about anybody to talk about hyperconsumption and, discouraging people to do that, be more mindful of their choices. And true blue de-influencing content, in my opinion, does those things. It discourages people from hyper-consuming. It asks people to be more thoughtful about their choices or really to, think about your choices before you make them and to just kind of illuminate in some kind of way the absurdity of hyperconsumption. Videos that do this, I generally like. However, similar to the anti-haul, these videos quickly devolve. After watching many videos, I realized that de-influencing wasn't really what I thought it was. First of all, many of these videos are from creators who participate or contribute to overconsumption, or they publish content that is consumer driven in some kind of way. And I consider review channels to also be part of this sphere of things because review channels that, let's say, review new clothing lines or review new beauty releases, they keep new releases at the top of mind. And the people who do this generally have larger collections of stuff than the average person, larger wardrobes, larger makeup collections, larger book collections. They are constantly buying a lot. They're constantly owning a lot. Some of the things aren't bought, but given to them. And they show these things as normal. So it feels kind of hypocritical to me for somebody to come on to their channel. Let's say they get sent a lot of clothing from brands because they do ad reads for them or just because they're sent clothes. It feels hypocritical to me for a person to have a mass amount of stuff to then come on their channel to be like, don't buy stuff. And then in the next video, they go, buy more stuff or look at all of my stuff. And a channel doesn't have to say, look at all of my stuff to basically do that in the background. So many channels will say, you don't have to consume like this because you're not a YouTube creator, or this isn't normal because you're not a YouTube creator. That is such a cop-out to me because by virtue of being online, you become the example. You are hyper visible. You've decided to put your life publicly and to share your wardrobe publicly, or your makeup collection publicly, or your book collection publicly. You now have an influence, and showing stuff is an influence that you are responsible for, whether you want to take ownership of it or not. Your actions and your behaviors speak just as loud as the things that you say on camera. And when you own stuff, when you own a lot of stuff, you encourage this behavior in your audience, even when you say not to do that thing, because your behavior says something different. Saying don't do this does not negate all the influence that they have or what their content or their ownership of stuff or their habits says. One de-influencing video does not negate everything else that they do on their channel. If you wanted to be a cynic, and I'm not saying I am a cynic per se, but if you wanted to be one, these videos could have a more nefarious purpose. By that, I mean they could increase their subscriber loyalty. People can say, oh my God, they're looking out for us. They have our best interest at heart. They care about us. And I think it is a way of potentially increasing trust and favorability and likability in a creator, therefore making the subscribers more susceptible to their influence in the future. And with that, content creators are using a trend to their advantage. That's kind of why I call it maybe a little bit more nefarious, or like it could be nefarious. If this content wasn't popular right now, would all of these creators that you're seeing making this content, would they be making this content? I don't think so. They have a vested interest in you watching this content, so you trust them, so they make money by you clicking on the video. It gains traction for their channel. They get into the algorithm, especially, if you're like a mid-sized channel and you're hopping on a really popular trend, it could do great big things for your channel. Now, this doesn't mean that every channel who has ever created a de-influencing video is a hot pile of garbage. No. And I'm not saying people who have de-influence in this way should be thrown off the internet and their channel has no merit or place in the world. What I am saying is that many creators are using this trend to their advantage. Know that when you go watch their video, and you can decide whether that makes them more favorable, less favorable, or no change in your opinion. Now, let's talk about the content itself. A large majority of de-influencing videos actually suggest product alternatives. They'll say, this thing wasn't worth the money, so buy this thing instead. This is not de-influencing. If you are suggesting that somebody buy something in any kind of capacity, even if it is 50% less than the initial product, you're still suggesting somebody buy something. If you tell somebody, you know what, this Stanley Cup is not worth it for the $50 or whatever it is, buy this $25 one instead. You're not saving $25. You're suggesting that your subscribers spend $25 on something that they don't need. Nobody needs Ugg boots or a Stanley Cup. You might need a water bottle or a liquid vessel of some kind, but that does not equate a need to the Stanley Cup. Needing winter boots does not equate to the need for the Ugg. The other major way or style of de-influencing video is by saying that something isn't worth the money. So the person has gone out and tried the Dyson Airwrap, the Stanley Cup, the Ugg, the Charlotte Tilbury wand, whatever the popular product is. And they tell you, you don't need to buy this because it's not worth the money. Perhaps this is a nitpick to me. You don't need $400 Apple headphones or $600, whatever it is. You don't need an iPhone 10. You don't need the Charlotte Tilbury wand. You don't need, what's the hot lipstick right now? I don't know. You don't need it. You don't need it. Why? Because you have something else already. Because you don't need to buy more stuff. It's a fine line here, because if the product worked, if the Charlotte Tilbury product worked, then they would be recommending it to you. That's fine in other circumstances. You are allowed to like an expensive product, but in the grand scheme of de-influencing, if you're talking about your personal experience with them, one, you've contributed to the hype by talking about this thing on your channel. And two, the reason why you're de-influencing or it's in this de-influencing video is not because of the absurdity of consumption. It's not because we don't need to buy stuff that's popular. It's not because you already own so much stuff already, you don't need more stuff. It's because it didn't work. That's not the time or the place for that kind of content. And even if hypothetically speaking, the Stanley Cup was amazing, best cup you ever had, you don't need to push a $50 cup on people. I want to say no drinking vessel will ever be life-changing because it's a drinking vessel, but never say never. The sentiment still stands. It's a drinking vessel. It will not change your life. This is kind of my point. If the stuff works slightly better, it would just be in a favorites video. That's not the point of influencing. Influencers have a vested interest in keeping your shopping habits exactly the way they are if they're not good. Because then you'll continue to buy the stuff that they push and they recommend because they push and they recommend it. Lastly, de-influencing shows us just how powerful creators are at influencing people's habits and choices. De-influencing is still influencing. People are just doing it in ways that we are seeing as desirable. Will you act based on what they say, positive or negative? Because if you are swayed by one person's opinion, that means that you will take their opinion not to buy stuff just as easily as you'll take their opinion to buy stuff. People online shouldn't be the deciding factors of your choices. You should be the deciding factors of your choices. And perhaps my channel is not the best microcosm or test set of the general population because a lot of us here are trying to change our shopping habits, and Kim Kardashian or Miranda Jerf, is that her name? Brands wouldn't be paying influencers all the money that they're being paid if they didn't work. So the real question in all of this is how quick are you to whip out your credit card based on what's popular, number one, and based on what other people are saying? How much of your decision making is coming from you, from assessing your needs, your wants, what you already own, your budget, and other factors? Yes, if you haven't purchased something, reading reviews, watching videos can be a great tool to help you make decisions. That is different from going onto somebody's channel or somebody's TikTok page, seeing that they're crazy about Olaplex, and then buying it because they recommend it. Personally, for me, there have been moments in my past, largely before my no-buy, where I was choosing not to be an active participant in the buying process. By that, I mean, I wanted to be influenced and I wanted to buy stuff. I remember back in 2014, when I discovered beauty YouTube, I watched Tati Westbrook's video with a notepad on the side to take notes about all the things that I should buy. The reason why I was wanting to buy this stuff in the first place, taking my list to the drugstore, was because Tati said so. I didn't want to think critically about my choices because thinking critically about my choices would mean that there'd be reasons not to buy stuff. One conversation that I do hear from millennials in specific about the beauty space, people who are online on beauty YouTube between 2012 and 2016 is we didn't know better back then. There were affiliate links coming out at that time. There were, sponsorships happening for the first time. All of this was new territory and we didn't know better. The youth of today, they know better. I feel like this is maybe a little bit of a millennial Gen Z kind of thing. Sure. That is fair. We didn't know better because all of these things were new to the time, but there are always people discovering YouTube, TikTok, Instagram for the first time. There are people who are becoming creators for the first time. There was a whole generation of creators before me who knew about the predatory brand deals that were happening. Just because there are people who knew before you doesn't mean that there are people who doesn't mean that the people who learn after you are somehow like sheep. For that matter, there are millennials and Gen Xers who are discovering these platforms for the first time as well. There are a lot of people who are in their phase of being influenced by consumers online. And to say that's not true, I mean, hyperconsumption is true. It's a thing. And I don't think any influencers made their de-influencing videos to, become de-influencers full time. I do think it was through a tokenistic effort of like jumping on a trend. And I do want to give people the benefit of the doubt that they did these things with good intentions, that they think that it's positive to tell people to not spend all of their money. I'm not trying to be a total cynic, but at the same time, everybody went back to business as normal. And when it comes to creators, I'm not telling them don't take a sponsorship, don't take an ad, because those are ways that you can make money. But there are also ways to advocate people shop responsibly when they shop. That's it from me today. I've been wanting to talk about de-influencing for like 6-7 months now, and I'm glad I did. I want to hear your opinions in the comments. What do you think about de-influencing? Are you a fan? Do you like them? Do you still watch them? Would you watch them if people made more of them? Let me know everything in the comments. Thanks for watching, hanging out with me today. I would love it if you would subscribe to catch more content like this, and I hope to see you again around here soon.